Her silence scared me. Then she said something I'll never forget. I never thought a quiet dinner could change the way I saw everything. We'd been together for almost 2 years, and in that time, I had learned to read her mood just by the way she stirred her coffee or looked out the window. But that night was different. She sat across from me, barely touching her food, eyes focused on something distant, somewhere far beyond the walls of our little apartment. The silence was loud, too loud. And even though I tried to break it with casual questions or small jokes, she only offered a tight smile and a quiet in response. At first, I thought maybe she was just tired. Maybe work had been rough or something had upset her on the way home. But the longer it went on, the heavier the silence felt. It wasn't anger. It wasn't sadness either. It was something else, something I couldn't name. And the more I tried to pretend everything was fine, the more I felt like I was sitting on the edge of something I couldn't see coming. Then, right as I reached across the table to touch her hand, she looked up. Her eyes locked with mine, calm, but unreadable. She took a breath, and what she said next changed everything. It wasn't what I expected. It wasn't loud. It wasn't dramatic. But it stopped my heart for a second. Because in just a few words, she unraveled a truth I didn't know I'd been avoiding. What she said, I'll never forget. And from that moment, nothing between us was ever the same again. You'll want to hear the rest of this, because sometimes silence isn't just the absence of words. Sometimes, it's the warning before everything changes. I remember her exact words. There's something I've never told you. Simple.
Calm.
But they landed like a thunderclap in my chest. I sat there frozen, unsure if I should ask what it was or just wait for her to keep going. I think she knew I wasn't ready, not really, but she also knew that once it was said, there'd be no going back. The silence after that felt different, heavier, like something old had just walked into the room and was sitting right there with us. She looked down at her plate, still untouched, and I noticed her fingers were trembling just a little.
I had never seen her like that.
She was always composed, even in the worst moments, calm when we argued, collected when things went wrong. But tonight, something was cracking beneath the surface. And I could feel it wasn't something recent. This had been building for a long time, hidden under smiles and routine conversations. Maybe I missed the signs. Maybe I didn't want to see them. I thought back to a few months ago, when she started waking up in the middle of the night more often. She always said it was just bad dreams, but she never told me what they were about. Sometimes, I'd wake to find her just sitting in the dark, staring at nothing. I'd ask if she was okay, and she'd always say the same thing. Just couldn't sleep. I let it go, thinking it was stress or something from work. But now, sitting across from her, I knew it was more than that. The way she spoke, quiet, almost careful, made me feel like she'd been rehearsing this for weeks, maybe even months. I didn't interrupt. I just listened. But before she could finish the sentence, before she could say the thing I knew was coming, her phone buzzed. She glanced at the screen, and her whole expression changed. Whatever she was about to say, it got swallowed up in that moment. She locked the screen quickly and looked at me like nothing had happened. But I knew that text meant something. And now, not only was I waiting to hear the truth, but I also had to wonder, was there someone else involved in the story? Was I just now catching up to a secret that had been growing behind my back? The silence returned, but this time, it wasn't hers. It was mine. I wanted to ask her about the message, who it was from, why she looked so shaken for just a second before pretending nothing happened. But I didn't. Maybe I was scared of the answer. Or maybe I already knew it was better to let her talk in her own time. Still, something inside me started unraveling. The quiet moments between us didn't feel safe anymore. They felt like traps. I kept thinking about everything that led to this night. Every time she pulled away from a hug a little too quickly. Every time she laughed, but it didn't quite reach her eyes. Was I blind, or was she just that good at hiding? That night, after dinner, she went to the bedroom without saying much. I stayed on the couch, staring at the blank TV screen, trying to piece it all together. I thought about the trips she said she had to cancel last minute. The meetings that went longer than usual. The phone always turned face down. I wanted to believe it was all in my head, that I was just being paranoid. But deep down, I knew this wasn't random. This was part of something bigger. The next morning, she acted like nothing had happened. Smiled, asked if I wanted coffee, even kissed me on the cheek. But the air between us was tight. We were both performing. I wanted to confront her, ask her what she meant last night, what she'd never told me. But every time I tried to bring it up, she'd change the subject or look away like she didn't hear me. Later that week, a friend of mine, someone who barely knew her, mentioned seeing her downtown, alone, sitting in a parked car with someone. He didn't want to say more, but the way he looked at me said enough. I didn't ask questions then, but my mind wouldn't stop spinning. Who was she meeting? And why did she look so calm now, like none of it ever happened? I started noticing other things too. A locked drawer in her study, her sudden interest in keeping her journal private, the way her mood would shift when her phone buzzed late at night. The pieces were there, scattered, waiting to be put together. But every time I thought I was close to the truth, she would throw up another wall. And I was starting to realize maybe I didn't want to know what was on the other side. It was a Thursday night when everything finally started to come to a head. She was out again, said she had a late meeting with a client, something about an urgent deadline. Normally, I wouldn't have thought twice about it. But now, every little detail felt like a clue. Every word she said sounded like it was hiding something. I watched the clock, each hour that passed dragging slower than the last. I tried to distract myself, but my mind kept going back to that text, her silence at the dinner table, the things she almost said but didn't. Around 10:43 p.m., I heard the front door open. Her keys jingled softly, her heels clicked against the hardwood like always, but everything felt different now. I stayed in the hallway, watching her quietly as she slipped off her coat. She looked tired, but not in the usual way. It was like she was carrying something too heavy, like whatever secret she was holding was starting to wear her down. I finally spoke. "Who are you with tonight?" She froze. Just for a second. Then she turned to me with a smile that didn't reach her eyes and said, "I told you work stuff." That answer might have worked before, but not anymore. I stepped closer. "Don't lie to me. Please." Her face changed. The calm mask slipped for just a moment, and something sharp flickered behind her eyes. She looked at me like she was trying to figure out whether to tell the truth or to walk away from it all. "You don't want to know," she said quietly. "Not really. But I did. I needed to. Because this wasn't just about trust anymore. It was about everything we'd built or thought we had." The next day, I waited until she left the apartment, then opened the locked drawer in her study. I'd never gone through her things before. But I wasn't even thinking clearly. My hands were shaking as I found a small notebook, hidden beneath a stack of old papers. Inside were notes, scribbled thoughts, timelines, even names I didn't recognize. One page was marked with a red pen. It simply said, "He doesn't know yet. I don't know how to tell him." I didn't know what I expected to find, but this wasn't it. It wasn't proof of someone else, at least not in the way I feared. It was something deeper, personal,
Secret.
and in some twisted way, even scarier. That night, I didn't sleep. I couldn't. She came home late again. When she walked in, she stopped in the doorway, looked at me like she knew I'd found it. The silence that followed was heavy, the kind that fills a room before something breaks. I asked her one question. Just one. "What is it you're so afraid to tell me?" She stared at me for a long time. Then she finally sat down across from me. No more running. No more hiding. And then she opened her mouth to speak. She looked me in the eye and said, "I've been protecting you." Her voice was steady, but her hands fidgeted with the edge of her sleeve, like she was holding back a storm. I didn't speak. I didn't even breathe. I was trying to process what those 4 words could possibly mean. "I didn't lie to hurt you," she went on. "But something happened before I met you. Something I thought I could leave behind, but it's followed me." That's when she reached into her bag and pulled out a folded piece of paper. She slid it across the table without a word. I hesitated, then opened it. It was a photograph, grainy, printed from what looked like a security camera. In it, She stood in a parking lot, talking to a man I didn't recognize. But the way he was looking at her, it wasn't casual. It was intense. His body language looked like he was cornering her, and her face looked afraid. "This man," she said quietly. "I used to know him. Years ago. We were involved in something that went wrong. I left, started over, changed everything about my life. But recently, he found me again." I was stunned. This wasn't about cheating. This wasn't about lies between us. This was bigger, deeper, something darker that had been hiding just beneath the surface of her silence. My mind raced. Who was this man? What had happened between them? And why was he back now? She leaned in, voice barely above a whisper. "He said if I told you anything, he'd come after both of us. That's why I've been distant. That's why I've been meeting with him. I thought I could keep it away from you. But he's getting closer. And now, I don't think I can protect you anymore." The room felt colder. The tension in my chest was unbearable. Everything I thought I knew about her, about our life together, was shifting. And just when I thought I'd heard it all, she added, "There's more. Something I haven't told anyone. Not even the police." I blinked. "Wait, you went to the police?" She nodded slowly. "Months ago. But he disappeared before they could act. And now he's watching again. I don't know how, but he always seems to know where I am." Suddenly, a loud knock echoed at the front door. We both jumped. She grabbed my arm, her grip tight. "Don't answer it," she whispered, her eyes wide. "It might be him." I stared at the door, frozen, my heart pounding louder than the knock that had already faded into silence. I didn't know what was waiting on the other side. But in that moment, I realized we weren't just dealing with secrets anymore. We were in real danger. And the worst part? I still didn't know what she was truly hiding. The knock at the door came again, this time softer, more deliberate. We stood completely still, her hand still gripping my arm. I could feel the fear in her fingertips, the way her breath caught every time a floorboard creaked. I moved slowly toward the door, ignoring her whisper to stop. I needed to see. I needed to know if this man, the shadow haunting her, was really standing on the other side of my home. I opened it just a crack. No one was there. Only an envelope, plain and sealed, sitting on the welcome mat. I bent down, picked it up, and stepped back inside. She was pale, already shaking her head before I even opened it. "He always leaves something first," she said. "It's how he lets me know he's watching." Inside the envelope was a single photograph. This time, it wasn't her. It was me, taken earlier that day, walking into the grocery store. Same jacket, same time. My heart sank. He wasn't just watching her anymore. He was watching both of us. She collapsed onto the couch, burying her face in her hands. "I should have told you everything from the start. I thought I could handle it alone."
You sat beside her.
"You're not alone anymore." That night, we drove to the police station. She told them everything, the past, the threats, the stalking. It wasn't easy, but finally, they believed her. They reopened the case with new urgency now that I had been dragged into it too. With her statement and the photo as fresh evidence, they launched a search for him. Within days, he was caught, just outside town, watching our building from a parked car. Relief came fast, but it didn't last long. Because after he was arrested, she sat me down one last time and said, "There's something else. Something I never told anyone." I waited. She reached into her coat and pulled out another photo. This time it was of a child. "Our child," she said softly, "from before." I didn't just leave that man. I took something with me. Everything inside me went still. The man wasn't just following her out of obsession. He was trying to take back what he believed was his. I sat there, staring at the photo. A little boy, maybe 5 or 6, smiling at the camera, completely unaware of the storm surrounding his life. My heart was pounding, not out of fear anymore, but out of shock. She had a child, their child, and she had kept it hidden all this time. She looked at me with eyes full of guilt. I sent him away to live with my aunt in another state. Somewhere safe. I didn't want that man anywhere near him. I thought if I kept the truth buried, I could protect both of you. For the first time since this all began, I understood her silence. The late nights. The locked drawers. The secrets. It wasn't about betrayal, it was about survival. She wasn't trying to push me away. She was carrying a weight far heavier than I ever imagined, doing everything she could to keep it from crushing the people she loved. In the weeks that followed, things changed.
Slowly. Carefully.
The man was kept in custody after the truth came out. Charges were filed not just for stalking, but for past abuse she had been too afraid to report. The photo, her testimony, and a trail of evidence finally brought it all into the light. It was messy, painful, but it was over. Eventually, I met the boy, and in his eyes, I saw her strength, quiet, steady, unshaken. He didn't know the full story yet, and maybe he wouldn't for a long time. But I knew we were building something honest now. No more silence. No more shadows. Looking back, I think about that night at the dinner table, the way she sat there saying nothing. I thought her silence meant distance. I thought she was hiding from me. But the truth was, she was protecting something far greater than I understood. Her silence scared me. But when she finally spoke, she changed everything. And now, every day feels like a second chance. A chance to live without fear, to love without walls, and to speak the truth, even when it's hard. Because sometimes the deepest pain hides behind the quietest moments. And sometimes, the scariest silence is just the beginning of the most powerful story.